excited just to really get started. So, hello, I'm Zuri, and this is The Creator's Purpose.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Creator's Purpose. And I am so glad today to have my guest, Adam McCloskey.
Howdy,
McCloskey.
howdy, y'all.
So, Adam, this was a very interesting, like just spur of the moment idea. I wanted to reach out to you because I know that you are the ministry that God has given you is growing. And
Mm,
the first time that I met you, all the people that are watching, Adam is a part of Jesus Generation.
yeah.
Adam's a musician and singer and all the things. Am I missing something? Evangelist.
Beloved son.
Yes, beloved son. And the first time I actually met you was at School of Reform event with our
Yep.
friend Brandon in Lexington. And I was just one of the attendees, and I was going into this room, and it was you and a couple other people. You all were already in there, kind of just setting the atmosphere for the people that entered the room. You were already playing the guitar and
Yeah.
singing, and it was just like we just walked into that room and we're just hit with, okay, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. So, Adam, tell me a little bit about your journey in music, but also just how God has been growing you in just this worship.
Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah, for sure. So awesome. Well, thank you again, Zuri, just for having me on here. It's an honor just to be because your ministry and your voice is growing. And so
Yeah.
it's an honor to be on this platform. So yeah, hey y'all. Adam McCloskey. So just a little backstory. I'll just share a little testimony, my testimony a little bit. So I was raised in Pennsylvania, specifically Philadelphia area, born and raised there for pretty much 21 years of my life. I'm 25 now. So me and my family were not raised in the church. We were raised Catholic, but it was very like it was a once a year type of thing, or just very not often. And when it was religious. So I had no real idea of relationship, of knowing the Father, having intimate relationship as a son. None of that was there. And so pretty much for the first um, almost 11 years of my life, I had no reality or knowledge really of Jesus at all. And when I was around 11, my family came and got born again at a Christian church.
Mhm.
After my dad had passed away when I was 7, he had a lot of struggles and mental illness. So the first 7 years of my life was really chaos. And then when he passed away, my family just kind of got worse and worse. And then when I was about 11, my family started to get rebuilt by the Lord. And my brother, all of them have different testimonies, but radical encounters for each. Like my one brother had a vision or a dream where Jesus, a man in white, came to him in a dream,
Wow.
touched him, and all of the depression lifted, the suicidal thoughts lifted. He woke up, tried to get high, couldn't get high. So just one after another, the Lord encountered my family, specifically when I was 17. So I lived probably from like 12 to 17, kind of back and forth. You know, I was growing in my faith. I knew about Jesus, but I didn't know him.
Mhm.
And so I grew up kind of growing in the world. You know, I was a pothead and skateboarder, and, you know, I loved Jesus to the best that I knew how. I wasn't really taught that there was a life that you could live freely
Mhm.
as a son. And so when I was 17, I really encountered Jesus in a powerful way. And that's when worship really woke up or was awakened in my life. I would say when I was, yeah, like around 17, my brother actually, so this is kind of getting into the worship aspect
Yeah.
of it. So I would just, you know, all the desires that I once had got completely erased, got completely replaced with just a desire to know him.
Mhm.
Because I really think that that is, you know, worship in its entirety is just this this awestruckness and this desire to know the one that you're looking at. You know, if it's not coming from that place, then, you know, it can become just a routine, and it can become religious.
Mhm.
But there's such a, when you're captured by the one you're seeing, there's such an awakening of worship in you. And that worship is expressed in so many different ways. It could be music, it could be art, it could be whatever. So for me, yeah, I got just radically encountered, and I just started, I would go home, I would go to school, and I would come home and just close my door and just let loose for
Yeah.
hours and just worship and scream at the top of my lungs. And my mom, who's in the kitchen, she would attest that my voice was like a dead cat. So there was no sense of, you know, tone at all. I mean, I was like tone deaf.
Mhm.
And but I just began to worship and worship and worship, and the Lord, um, you know, it's been about, I don't know, like 6 years, or I'm 25, so a little bit longer than that. So around 6 or 7, then as I really began to, you know, dive into worship, and I learned how to play the guitar then, and
Mhm.
just began to dive into that. And it's only about been in the past probably 2.5 years that I've really actually considered worship as a primary thing in my life, as
Mhm.
something that the Lord wants to produce sounds through my life into the earth for people to know him through.
Mhm.
So that's pretty recent, even in the past couple of years, that I've just began to actually be like, okay, Lord, like this is actually something you've put on my life. It's not just like a little thing, but it's actually a primary thing. So yeah, I don't know if that necessarily hits
No, it does, it does, and I can attest to having seen it and seen, like, um so I'm a worshiper. I love worship. I love just getting in the presence of God. I love the words that are spoken, or even times when it not might not be words spoken, it's just whatever the tone is that may be going on. And the thing that I have seen with you is when I may have seen you in front of a crowd or something like that, because I know you were also one of the worship leaders for a friend of mine, Ashaya in Berea, for a
Mhm.
conference that she did. Um, it's not about the crowds.
Mm-mm.
It's not about the crowds at all. It's just about the ability just to express
Yeah.
him in this place. Did that ever come up though? Did the temptation of, "Oh, I don't see anything from the crowd,"
Yeah.
temptation come up like, "Oh, I need to do something differently?"
Oh, for sure. You know, I think that with anybody who leads in any aspect of the church in general, whether it's your teaching, whether you're, you know, just sharing encouraging words, whether it's worship, whatever it is, there's always that temptation to judge how successful what God is doing in the room based off the reaction or based off the response. And definitely, it's something as a worshiper you have to guard your heart, because, like you said, ultimately it's not about the crowds. It's not about, you know, this is something the Lord said to me, and it wasn't even necessarily in regards to worship, but it does apply to worship. And he said, Adam, as someone who's a seed sower, your job is to simply give.
Mm,
It's not your job to measure the responsiveness of that seed.
mhm,
And so our job as carriers of Jesus, as carriers of his presence in worship, in whatever, our job is to simply give and
mhm,
not worry about how that's being received or what's happening, or trying to, because then if you do that, the temptation is to try to change, to
yeah,
try to shift and adapt. You know, and that's where we see, I think, even in worship, we see a lot of shifting and changing and adapting to try to please people, to hopefully get a pleasing response out of people. But yeah, for sure, that has definitely been. But honestly, for me, I don't want to be like no, but like honestly, for me, it hasn't been a huge, because I think just because I'm so like, when I get up there, it's just like everybody else disappears.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like bringing people into my secret place. And
Yeah.
so for me, I think that the key was I really developed a healthy secret place in that first couple years of my life, where I was worshiping not for the sake of another, but just to know him. And I
Yeah.
developed that so that when I eventually did start to lead, worship and do stuff, it was kind of like no different for me. Like it didn't feel any really too much different than when I was in the closet or in my room just before the one.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like kind of the audience of one people talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you said there was so important as far as you're inviting people into your secret place. And it's interesting because from what you said, like your journey is kind of the opposite of what some that may have entered into worship spaces.
Yeah.
They may have started off with the talent of being able to sing well or being able to play instruments well or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they had to learn how to surrender that to God.
Yeah.
But yours was kind of like, I'm just coming as I
Yeah.
am.
It was the other way around. Like there
Yeah.
was no talent, no skill, but there was heart, And I
Yeah.
think that like that's the thing. The Lord can do a lot with somebody's heart who
Mhm.
is surrendered and willing, because that was something the Lord kind of showed me, that like because I was so surrendered in worship and I didn't care what I looked like, the Lord was able to actually take my physical voice
Mhm.
and bring it to a place
Mm.
supernaturally that otherwise wouldn't be, I don't think, as possible, because my voice progressed so fast
Mhm.
in such a short time, and it grew. And I'm not saying I have some professional voice or anything like that, but I love my voice.
Yeah.
I love my voice, and I think it's a really awesome voice,
Mhm.
and a lot of other people do. So it's not about, I think that's one thing, is a lot of people are held back because of the lack of love of their own voice. Like
Mhm.
in worship, I don't know how many people I've probably talked to where the reason why they don't fully enter in is insecurity.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
don't know. I don't want my neighbor to hear me. I don't
Mm.
want, my family to hear me. I don't want to sound off key. But the thing is, when you surrender that and you yield your heart, then the Lord is able to bring your skill and your natural up to a place where otherwise it would take years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good because as you can see, this is called the creative's purpose. And I believe that there are so many people that have these gifts and these talents, but then there are people that may not see the
Yeah.
gift, but they desire to do something for God.
Yeah.
And sometimes I believe there's some that have a frustration of, I don't think I'm good at this thing, but I just have this desire to
Oh
do it.
yeah.
And what you're saying right now is like, just do it, and God will meet you
Yeah.
where
Just
you
do
are.
it, because the thing is, it's like if you wait until you have, the talent
Mhm.
or the skill to fully worship him, then you might never.
Mm.
Because it's like, the thing is this, it's kind of like with, it goes with that in a lot of areas of your life, even with like finances.
Mhm.
If you wait to be generous until you have, if you wait until you have a lot of money to be generous, well, chances are, you're never going to be generous, because you might be putting a label of what you think a lot of money is, and you're
Mm.
waiting for this certain thing so that you can be generous. But it's like, you start with where you're at. You start with what is given, and to the one who is faithful with little,
Mhm.
they'll be faithful with a lot.
Yeah. Now I wanna just because I think something beautiful that I've seen is the community that you have.
Mm.
How did that come about?
Yeah, the community, like our the people we're with, and our community. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we went to LCU, Lifestyle Christianity University in Texas, Dallas, Texas, with Todd White.
Mhm.
So we had already been kind of a part of. So before we went, we were at a church back in Pennsylvania
Mhm.
where we were youth pastors. So we always had a
When
heart
you
to
say we right now, you're talking about your family.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So me and my brother Drew McCloskey, who is the founder. Thank you for that, because people don't know we. So me and my brother Drew McCloskey, who is the founder of the Jesus Generation, and then I'm kind of like the co-founder, right hand guy. But yeah, so me and my whole family uprooted and moved after LCU. But when we went to LCU, the Lord really used us in a kind of a powerful way to develop community, because it was the first class. There wasn't a lot of set things in place as far as like clubs or worship nights. So the Lord used us to actually start a worship night that we call Jesus Nights. And I know that's a common name, all across the body of Christ, Jesus Image, different people. But that was something that we started in that community. We would do these wild worship nights every Thursday night, and we would pack this house full of like 90 people. Wow. And just go wild. And it was some of the craziest, most intense worship times I've ever had in my life, because everybody was just completely abandoned. And everybody was in this new season of like, I don't know what's going on. Everything's growing, everything's new, but it was this comfort that came from, we're together in this. And so, yeah, I would say the community aspect of our life has been there for a while. It really began there, and then we kind of carried it. We met some brothers there, some really close friends that we developed just brotherhood, life, covenant with. And then we planted here and kind of just brought what we did there here, in a way. So that we do, worship nights here that we still call Jesus Nights. We do community kind of like home church gatherings, not necessarily home church, because we're a part of a church, Destiny Community Church in Lexington. But yeah, we do like home group meetings. And I think that, God's heart, when you look at him, he is relational.
Yeah.
More than anything, more than him trying to get something done, more than some type of agenda he has or some mission. His mission is family.
Yeah.
And that is where I really believe, even, you talk about creative's purpose. What is the purpose of creativity? And there's a lot of different things you could answer, but really, I believe creativity comes from this place of family, where everybody is welcome to be themselves, and to actually express themselves, and know that what they express will be received and celebrated.
That's good.
And so there's no fear, because where there's fear, there's no creativity.
Yeah.
Because if there's fear, you're not going to be, you might have a dream or some idea in your heart, but I'm not going to share that. I'm not going to express that. I'm not going to choose to walk that out because, well, I don't know if people will receive it. I don't know if it'll be, honored. I don't know if people, but where there's a place of community and family and this place of value and celebration, then man, creativity is just natural. It just happens. Yep. And that's what I really believe the triune God, the Trinity is a living community between a Father and a Son, Holy Spirit. They've been sharing in this, some people call it the dance of love, for all eternity. And they have this community. And so it's natural for us to carry that. So that's big on our heart and discipleship in that way.
That's good. Listen, Adam, you said a whole lot just then, and I'm like, okay, I found this part, this nugget, but one part that just stuck, like, I'm like, I'm going to write that down. That's going to be something. It's like, where there's fear, there's no creativity.
Yeah.
And I can say, even in creating this platform and talking to creatives, my belief of what creativity is being able to just express the heart of God in so many different ways, but not only being able to express it, but now being able to just share his glory with people.
Yeah.
Because who's not drawn to a beautiful picture, or who's not drawn to beautiful sound or something like that? But if we're experiencing the fear of expressing that, then we're not only kind of silencing ourselves, but now we're kind of clogging up or stopping someone from being drawn to
Yep.
something, drawn to him.
Yeah. You're stealing the ability for someone else to encounter the Lord in that beauty. All workmanship, all beauty reflects from him.
Yeah.
Like, it's impossible for anybody to create without first reflecting the creator. And so when you refuse to create, when you refuse or you silence that, like you're talking about, you are, like you said, you're it's like a river that you're damming up. And you're putting a dam and you're saying nobody's going to get this river. And that's kind of like quenching the Holy Spirit. He's a river within us.
Yeah.
And he's just like, let me out. But when we choose to yield to fear and we dam that river up because of the fear of man, the fear of rejection, whatever, then we are in essence stopping somebody from actually receiving and encountering the Lord through that, whatever that is. Like you said, somebody, if they look at a painting and it's beautiful, boom, that's instant. They're gonna be like, wow. They're gonna experience the beauty of creation and workmanship and mastery, all that.
Yeah. Okay, now I always like to bring whoever's watching this something practical, something that they can put into motion. And I feel like the way that we've talked about worship, I know you and I may understand that, but not everybody understands it. Some may be coming from maybe more religious background, or some may be just getting introduced to Jesus, or somebody may have just come across this because it's like, oh, this is an interesting thing.
Yeah.
So if you had to share with someone, like, how do you worship God? How do you enter into this place of worship? What would you say?
I would say that, like I said, it really comes from intimacy. You can't worship someone you don't know. So the thing is this, that's what Jesus says when he's talking to the woman at the well. He says, your people, the Samaritans, they worship what they don't know.
Right.
He says, so they have just this idea that they worship from afar, and that's where idols come from. There are these statues. They have no ability to hear and see. And so what makes our God so different is that he has eyes and ears.
Yeah.
And he has a mouth. So you can hear him, you can see him, you can know him. And so I really think worship in the purest essence is birthed from intimacy, from knowing, because that's what Jesus says. He says the Jews, they worship what they know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think there was a play on with that too, because he's saying they worship what they know. But Jesus was saying, but there's going to be a day when there's a worshiper that comes who's not just going to worship the thing that they know about, but the one that they know in spirit and truth. So there's an aspect of knowing him through experience, but also worshiping through, I think that a really helpful way to enter into worship, we teach people what it looks like to, as the Jesus generation, we teach Jesus the way, the truth, and the life. And Jesus, the way, is intimacy. So he's the way to know the Father. And then Jesus, the truth, he's the identity about who we are now. And then Jesus, the life, he is now our life and the one we live and express. But the thing is this, I could almost switch it around and put Jesus, the truth, first, because unless you know who you are as a son, you might not have, or daughter, we're all sons, brides, you might not have boldness to enter into that place of worship. You need to know that your Father welcomes you to come in. That's where you belong, in that place, in his presence. And so but practically, I think, just taking time daily, even just to be still. And worship doesn't have to be you don't have to be going wild. You know what I mean? Like, some of the most special times of worship, I think, are you're in the stillness. So even just taking time daily just to sit with him when no one's looking and just, without, you might not even have to say anything. Just let your affection, the affection of your heart rise to him. And tell him what he means to you. Tell him how much he means to you, how thankful you are that he has saved you and he's brought you back from death. And there, out of that place, worship will just spring up, out of that place of just thankfulness. I think that's a really practical tool too, is developing thankfulness in your life. This is something that I did for a while. Every day, write down 3 or more things that you're thankful for. Because if you're not thankful, then man, it's going to be hard to worship, because it's like, that's in essence one of the greatest worshiping tools or ways that you worship is thanksgiving. It talks about, the Bible talks about thanksgiving, praise, exhortation, different things like that. But thanksgiving is the essence of worship. It's saying, I'm so thankful that you've rescued, you saved, you've healed, you've delivered. But for me to be able to do that, I have to remember how he saved me, delivered me. So testimony, even just remembering daily, even the testimony of your life and what he's brought you from and what he's done in your family, I believe is such a practical way of developing a heart of worship. Like, some people feel it's hard to enter into worship because honestly, they're entertaining so much lies daily of like, man, this in my life's just junky. This in my life's junky. And this complaining and all of this lack-mindedness won't produce worship. And so that's a practical tool, is just like write down 3 or more things a day that you're thankful for, and then just go be alone with him and thank him for it.
That is so good. That is so good. Well, Adam, I know that we could probably go on and on, could ask all these questions, but I know that you have a couple of different ways that people can follow you now. Because I saw you started TikTok,
Yeah.
all the things. So tell the people where they can either follow you on social media or other ministry type of things.
Yeah, so I did just start TikTok. I'm on there. So you can follow me at Adam P. McCloskey, which is McCloskey. I think it'll be on this title too. So yeah, at Adam P. McCloskey on TikTok, and then Instagram, same thing, Adam Patrick. That's what the P stands for. Adam Patrick McCloskey. We also have, I have a cool thing I'm doing in the summer. I'm doing a 2-month road trip called the Jesus Journey. And that's going to be wild. We're going to go from city to city. We're starting in Washington, D.C. We're going to the North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Mississippi, Texas, California, Nevada, and then up to Oregon, ending in Michigan, and then finally ending in Kentucky.
Is this a flight? Is this a drive?
It's a drive. So we're gonna be putting in over 10,000 miles, we calculated. So also shout out, we're looking for a van if anybody watches this and has a van that they're looking. But you can follow us on Instagram too, at the Jesus Journey. That you can just type that in, and then also the Jesus Generation. The Jesus Generation has Facebook, Instagram, and I think TikTok. So you can type in all of those pretty much on all 3 platforms, and you will find us. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much for just joining and doing this interview with me, and people that'll get a chance to just listen and are being introduced or reminded of the ministry that you have going on. And for all those that are watching, please go find Adam and the Jesus Generation, all those places. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.